angels, to another video. So I see that I have some new fam in the Hize, and welcome guys. Thank you so much. Like, I'm so humbled by you guys just subscribing to this channel, and I hope that I get to, like, you know, help you out and entertain you during this lockdown period. So today is all things breastfeeding. Girl, if you ain't been humbled before, breastfeeding will humble you, okay? Especially in the beginning stages. So let's just jump straight into the video and let's talk about the breastfeeding journey. So yeah, before we get into the meaty stuff, I just wanted to point out, listen, I understand, mama, I get it, why you would not breastfeed. Number two, I understand why you would breastfeed. Number three, those who couldn't breastfeed and didn't have a choice, I see you, mama, and I send all my love to you. So just a disclaimer, I get it from all rounds, like I get it. So this video is just, you know, more so tips and things I wish I knew, I wish people had told me, and just more on my breastfeeding journey, and maybe you can pick up a thing or two that could help you out with your breastfeeding journey. So no pressure whatsoever. If you want to listen just for the you know, you're curious about breastfeeding, what's so hard about it, what's so beneficial about it, why are people choosing not to do it, why are people choosing to do it, stay tuned. When you think about breastfeeding, you're thinking, this is like a natural thing that women should know how to do. It's a natural thing that all women should do. It's a natural thing that it just comes easy. Do you know what I mean? And this is the naive misconception that most of us young ladies have. Like, I feel like with some of the topics, if our grandmothers or our mothers or whatever were honest enough about it, I feel like we would be like well prepared for the road ahead. I feel like my doctor should have actually told me some of this stuff, but it's okay. It's okay. We just share my journey with you so you know you're not alone in feeling the feelings, the feels that you feel about breastfeeding. It's all good. It's all good. It is normal. Okay, so a break. Gotta go breastfeed my baby. Just woke up. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, so first things first, when you think breastfeeding, you think easy, right? Like, that's a natural thing. Like, it should just come easy. There should be like joy involved. With breastfeeding, right, this is what I always say. If your baby is formula fed, if your baby is breastfed, as long as your baby is fed, mama, you're doing great. But breastfeeding is super hard, guys, but it's super worth it at the end of the day, because the benefits outweigh the cons if you really think about it. But the person that we don't speak about in the midst of all this is the mama. How is the mama feeling? Like, how are you feeling? Because there's a lot of emotions that go into breastfeeding. Like, I can tell you one thing about my breastfeeding journey. In the beginning, I was so tired, firstly, because I had just given birth and my hormones are like all over the place. I'm fatigued. My body is like sleep deprived. There was just like so much that went into it when I first started breastfeeding. Like, I felt so much like my mental state just was not in it. I promise you, I wanted to do this so bad, but every second day, like, I wanted to give up. Like, I swear, I just like wake up and I'm like, I'm done, because this process of breastfeeding, it's very tiring for all the parties involved, but it does get easier as time goes on. I'll tell you that much. It does get easier as time goes on. You'll see the benefits as time goes on. But the question is, can you withstand the beginning for you to make it to the it does get easier part? Because the beginning is super hard. It's super hard. And I don't judge no woman that says, listen, I'm giving up right now, or I quit, or I won't do it. I don't judge no more. Like, honestly, my naive self, like, I'd be like, why wouldn't you breastfeed your baby? I mean, the benefits, I don't judge. It takes a lot of mental and physical strength to breastfeed, and it's a long journey. I yeah, it's a long journey, I promise you. Like, you learn something new every single day. You literally have to study your body, you literally have to pay attention to your body, be in tune with your body and your boobs and just what it needs to supply all this food for your baby, especially if you're exclusively breastfeeding with no formula involved. Like, you need to be on top of your milk supply, but that is going to be on another video on how to increase your milk supply, tips on how to breastfeed. Okay, so now let's focus on the journey. Lots of emotions, lots of fatigue. Mentally, you need to be strong, but that is so hard, especially if you're going through postpartum. And just like the sleep deprivation plays a lot into it, because when you're breastfeeding your baby, when they wake up at 2 a.m., the daddy can't wake up because you have the food. So you are like on night duty every single night, and it's not by choice. Like what else can he do? Sometimes I wish he could just like take my boob and give it to the baby. So it's not by choice, but yeah, and the lack of support that you feel while you're breastfeeding, but there's not much people can do that are around you. Like, there's not much that they can do, honestly. It's just them helping you out with, you know, chores around the house and food. My husband has been great with, you know, cooking, helping me out with just like providing food, because when you're breastfeeding, that's like your number one source of energy, and just you know, helping your milk production increase. So it got out of hospital. Actually, let me talk about the in-hospital experience, because that's also like another thing that you don't think about. So when I gave birth to my son, 45 minutes later, they brought him in and they put him on my boob. So naturally you think, hey, I probably have like a flow of milk coming, and you don't worry about these things when you after giving birth, because that, like, why would you worry that your body will not provide food for the baby that it's making? But that is a worry that most moms have. Once you see that in the beginning your milk is not flowing, it's really not. You actually have this thick, it's not jelly like, it's like a thick, I can't explain, it's like wax, and that's what they call the colostrum. And it's actually really highly beneficial. Even just a tiny bit of colostrum for the baby is so beneficial for them, and it's actually enough for them. But this is what I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So in my mind, I'm like, no milk is coming. What is happening? And so I asked the nurse. I'm like, I don't think I fed my baby right. I think he's still hungry. Can you please top him up? And so topping up is like having a substitute of formula in the nursery, where we'll give the baby some formula just in case they haven't had enough milk from you. But I got into this habit of topping up for like 2 days straight. And the nurse came in and she said to me, Mama, you need to stop topping up, because you need to build your milk supply. So the longer Kamani stays on your boobie, the better it is for you and him in the long run. I know it seems very tiring. It seems, daunting to have this baby on your boob. You don't know if you're feeding them. You don't know if what's coming out is nutritional. But trust me, your body knows. And so that's what I did. Like, that was the beginning. Like, I literally had to just have him on my boob and just trust. Like, I literally just had to trust that my body is going to do the things that it's meant to do to feed this baby. And sure enough, like, it worked. It worked. I saw some progress. Like, the colostrum was like going, as soon as I got discharged, like, I had a bit of milk coming in, and I was so proud of myself. Oh my gosh, I was so proud of myself. So the beginning is a bit daunting. Find out as much information as you can about breastfeeding before you commit. Like, when you go into hospital and you realize, oh gosh, this is not for me, like, don't feel bad, don't feel terrible. It's normal. It's a normal feeling. Either you push through it and you see what the end result is, but if you can't and you mentally just not up to it, especially if you're going through postpartum depression, although let me tell you, breastfeeding does help with aiding postpartum depression. It makes it less intense, and just the time that you go through postpartum depression is just shortened when you are breastfeeding. So that's another benefit for you. Okay, one thing that I'll tell you is that when I got home, I didn't know the intensity of having to take care of a baby 24/7, because when you're in hospital, you have all this help, the nurses, you know, daddy's there during the day and your family's there. And so you have all this help and like support. So when you go back home, this is where the real kicks in. And breastfeeding is actually a part of why there feels like there's a lot of pressure on you. You're just like, oh my gosh, there's so much pressure on me. I have to keep this little human alive, and my body has got to do the things to keep this human alive. So it is tough in the beginning, and I remember just thinking to myself, like, am I going to be able to do this? And I used to pitch my husband the idea of buying formula like every second day. Like, I'd literally be like, hey babe, you know, I think for you and Kamani to bond, let's just like get formula, and then at night you can feed him and whatever. No. He actually no. So he actually just like built up my confidence. He was like, no babe, you can do this, you know, if you really want to do, you can do this, just try it out. If it doesn't work, I support your decision no matter what it is. And it was even after him saying that, it still was tough. I just had to make the decision that it's worth it at the end, and I'm giving myself a timeline of, let me do it for the first 3 months and see how it goes. And so that's how you actually give yourself, you know, grace with how long you do it. Because when you set the goal of like a year, oh my gosh, a year, a year? But if you set your goal as 3 months and you reach the 3 months mark, you're like, yes, I can do this for another 3 months. And then you're at 6 months, I can do this for another 3 months. So make your goals realistic with how far or how long you're going to breastfeed. And don't be disappointed when you can't get to that goal. As long as you've done your best and your baby is fed, you are amazing. You're doing incredible. So I was constantly worried about my supply. Literally, I would like squeeze my boobs. I would try pump to see how much I'm producing, which works but sometimes doesn't work. And like, I was just like, why are my boobs not feeling heavy? Why am I not leaking? Am I not producing enough? Like, what is happening? Because all the moms that I've watched like YouTube channels on, or I've seen videos, or I've read books, they're like, yeah, if you're leaking, use the breast pad. I have never used a breast pad since I've started breastfeeding. And I've realized that your boobs leaking, or you know, using a breast pad or whatever, like, it doesn't determine the amount of milk that you make. What determines the amount of milk that you make is your baby, and how frequently your baby is on your boob. So just know that if your baby is on your boob, your body knows how much your baby needs and how much the body is supposed to produce. So don't dwell too much on that, because that causes stress, and stress equals less production of your milk. So that was my biggest mistake, always constantly worrying. And my mom-in-law was just like, listen, don't worry, like, it's like, this is the least of your problems. And she was right. Like, she absolutely was right. If you're patient and actually give yourself time and just grace to go through this journey, then it just gets easier, and you'll see that your supply just increases naturally. I mean, as your baby gets bigger, the more milk your baby needs, and the more matured your milk is. Okay, so with the tea, okay, let me tell you the tea on Fenugreek. So what Fenugreek basically is, it is a herb that is supposedly meant to increase your milk supply in a short period of time. And so there's a lot of supplements, there's a lot of natural foods too that can help you with your milk supply, but we'll chat about that in the next video. But I want to touch on fenugreek specifically. So I had been reading like reviews, I saw videos, girl, I was convinced. I bought into this herb of fenugreek and I said, yes, let's do it. So this thing goes to Discam, buys 2 bottles of fenugreek, which is about $200 each. I come home super excited. And so the whole point of you taking fenugreek is to increase your milk supply with natural herbs, right? You're like, oh, natural, organic, it can't hurt. It did. They lied to me. They lied to me. Actually, it was my responsibility to see what the side effects were, because all I saw were the benefits. And I was like, I mean, there's no way I can lose from this. There's no way my baby can lose from this. So let's just do it. Let's just do it all. And I remember I took 3 fenugreek pills because I didn't think you could like overdose on herby organic stuff. And one of the girls on YouTube said, when you begin, just take like 3 at one go, so that, you know, your body knows that the supply is about to lies. Okay, lie. This might work for you, but it didn't work for me. I took fenugreek and guess what happened? I was gassy. I felt nauseous. I felt off, man. But the one thing I'll tell you is after 4 days, my milk supply had increased and I was able to pump more. Before the fenugreek, I was like pumping about 30 to 40 mils in between feeds. And after the fenugreek, like taking it for a solid week, I was able to pump in between feeds. If you're breastfeeding, you know, in between feeds is like, it's tricky to do a pump in between feeds. But I was pumping about 70 to 80 mils after fenugreek. So I was like, this thing is working. But the one thing that I noticed, guys, my baby, oh, my poor baby, I still feel bad to this day. So Kamani had like bad gas, like super bad gas, and he was gassy. I could hear his tummy rumbling. It was bad. And you know, when a baby is gassy at that point, when they're newborns, like it's the worst period ever. They call it colic. So I had induced my own baby's colic. Moments of silence, cry with me. But I had induced this. He didn't have any problems with colic before. And so I noticed that week, like he was just like crying non-stop, and like he just, every time he was on my booby, like he wanted food, but he's just like, I don't know what this is, but like I'm hungry and I guess I'm gonna have to have food from here. But my poor son. And I realized, I was like, what is happening here? Like, why is he so gassy? Why is he crying all the time? Why is his tummy rumbling all the time? The one supplement that I took and changed was the fenugreek. Not a good experience for me. Never doing that again. It's not for me. No. Listen, if you have a positive fenugreek experience to share, please drop down in the comments below. Maybe it might help some other mommy, but my experience of fenugreek is hell no. I will never. It's not happening. Never again. Breastfeeding mommies will be familiar with, or maybe not. Maybe this is something that you're about to experience, or you have been experiencing it, but you don't know that this is actually what it is. So the babies go through growth spurts, and during this time they eat so much more, and only breastfeeding moms will notice this trend. So they eat way more and they sleep way more during the growth spurts, okay? But when they eat way more, this is called cluster feeding. What is cluster feeding? Why didn't anyone tell me about cluster feeding? So cluster feeding is basically when your baby feeds at like short intervals at a time. So he could like have milk now and he'll want milk 5 minutes later, and or he'll stay on the boob for like 2 hours straight, non-stop. I kid you not. That is cluster feeding, and that happens when they're going through a growth spurt. So this is normally like on your 6-week mark, on your 8-week mark, 3 months, as well as 6 months. And these periods are so stressful. I can't, like, so stressful. It was so stressful. I remember when I first had my first cluster feed, I wanted, like, could the earth just swallow me right now? I didn't know what was going on. Why is this baby crying continuously? Like, I just fed him like 5 minutes ago. Like, why is he hungry again? And then this made me question my milk supply. Is it going down? Like, is he not having enough milk? What is going on? Why? And this happens when I say feeding for 2 hours at a time. I mean exactly that. Like, this baby will scream if you take him off the boob. And I was like, am I the only one experiencing this? When I Google, apparently it's a trend. It's a trend that the bubbas go through. It's actually just biological. It happens, especially if they're breastfeeding. You'll notice it more because obviously they're on your boobs, and breastfeeding babies tend to eat more. You can't overdose on breast milk. It's just beneficial like that. And so I was like, oh wow, so this is a thing, and I need to be prepared for another cluster feed after this, and another one. It's basically like it felt like every 2 weeks that he'll be cluster feeding or going through a growth spurt. And just in this period, guys, the one thing I wish I knew is just be patient. Just be patient. Give your baby grace. Give yourself grace. Like, you're both going through something that is strange. Like, he doesn't know this or she doesn't know this. You also don't, especially if you're a first-time mom. So I literally like broke down. Like, I broke down the first 2 cluster feeds and growth spurts. I broke down. I cried so much, and I was just tired. Like, I literally couldn't keep my eyes open. My body was shutting down. I couldn't, you know. And the one thing that helped me during this period was trying to pump in between feeds so that my husband can also feed the baby while I try catch a nap, you know, a 2-hour nap or whatever. So to get through cluster feeding, make sure that you have, you know, help around you. Don't refuse the help. Make sure that you have like just measures in place that you can have a break, even if it's 2 hours. Trust me, you need it. You need it, mama. Oh, cluster feeding. I am 4.5 months in, and it's been a hell of a journey, like I told you. But it gets easier. I promise you, it gets easier. Mainly because the sleeping patterns get, you know, longer. Like the period in which your baby sleeps, the stretches are longer, so you also get to sleep more. And I think that really helps when you get a lot of rest. That helps with your breastfeeding. I realized that actually, like, the things that I went through, it was just like, you know, it was the gear up of having like a beautiful flow of milk. Like, the hard work is the first 2 months. Like, it's super hard work just building it up, like getting it going. 2.5 months actually. And so you'll see a trend of like this it just gets a bit easier as time goes on, especially just you know, the latching, and you'll love the bond too. Like, the bond between you and your baby is amazing. And just the you know, the amount that you make, you just get proud, man. Like, now if I pump, like, my pumps don't last 45 minutes to get 80 mils. Like, me getting 80 mils is within the first 10 minutes of pumping, you know, and I pump double that now. And so I'm able to look back and be like, yay, I actually did it and I stuck to it. My one advice for you, mama, who's planning on exclusively breastfeeding, do it. If that's what you want to do it. Don't let people tell you otherwise. Don't let people tell you it's super hard, your boobs are gonna sag, whatever. That's all up to you. It's your body. You should make that decision. It's your baby. And I would highly, like, the benefits outweigh the cons, honestly, especially when you see your baby growing and just, you know, how chubby they become. Just, I have so much pride, and I'm so proud of this body right now. Like, when I see my son, I'm just like, I did that. Like, I did that, and I'm still feeding him, and you know, he's growing, he's getting fat, especially when you see the weight gain. So it's totally worth it. And also, but I also understand why you would want to just let it go. Like, don't feel horrible if you feel that way. It's a lot of pressure, and mentally right now we're all like in a haze with all the things that are happening in the world. And so, like, breastfeeding takes a lot of mental strength and a lot of mental work too, because you have to fit it in to your life, and your life goes on, you know what I'm saying? But this little human being wanting food every 2 hours is there, and you just have to work around it. So I hope this video helps, just so you know you're not alone when it comes to breastfeeding and finding it hard. Like, it's super hard. It's super hard, but I'm super proud of you for like persevering, and you're here watching this video wanting to learn more. If you are a new mama and you're planning to breastfeed, I wish you all the best and all the luck. Watch my next video on tips of do's and don'ts, and just helpful tips on how to increase your milk supply. Love you guys, and I'll see you in the video, which is part 2 of breastfeeding, do's and don'ts. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe below, and I will see you in the next video. Do you guys love my face today?